We will be graced by former Quebec Premier Jean Charest, who's going to talk to us about tariffs and a whole lot more. Mr. Charest, nice to have you here.
Thank you very much, Aaron.
Been a long time. So, look, let me begin. I'm not even sure where, but we know markets have tumbled in the past couple of days. I'm not going to ask you to necessarily weigh in on that. I think everybody can draw their own conclusions for why that happened. I heard you in an interview, and I heard Mark Carney say the same thing, and I thought the phrase really tells a lot about what's been going on between Canada and the U.S. as far as these tariffs go. You use the phrase, a world of very bad choices. So explain, if you will, what that means, given the fact that, I think most people would agree we dodged a bit of a bullet when those tariffs were announced, but we already have tariffs hanging over our heads. So does it get worse from here? What do you think happens next?
Bad choices, to give you the best example, is they put tariffs on us, we put tariffs on them. So they hurt us, and we try to hurt them. And as we put tariffs on them, we hurt ourselves, Aaron, because our own businesses are going to have the inconvenience of tariffs. So it is a world of bad choices, and we do it not because we like to do it or want to do it. We do it because we have to reply, and we do have to have some leverage. So, and then where do we go from here? Well, and by the way, when they made their announcement 2 days ago, it was interesting because we weren't expecting what they announced. I mean, this whole festival of and fireworks of tariffs the world over. And then for Canada, they said, well, we're going to stick to the CUSMA agreement. This is a trade agreement that Mr. Trump himself negotiated and is out there, which is a good sign. And I'm in Washington now, and yesterday crossed paths with Secretary Lutnick, and we had a brief conversation, and a few times in the brief time we chatted, he mentioned this trade agreement, which is a good sign because we'd like to have a relationship based on an agreement as opposed to reacting on a day-to-day basis of what's happening. So whatever they decide they want to impose on us. One last comment. I mean, I think we're suffering from the Stockholm syndrome a bit. And 2 days ago, instead of getting punched twice, we got punched almost only once. But there are tariffs now, 25% tariffs on aluminum, on steel. There's tariffs on softwood lumber. There's now tariffs on automobiles. And that's a heavy load for us to carry. So we're far from being out of the woods, but with some luck, we'll be able to have an overall agreement, get through this election campaign, and negotiate an agreement that would give us some stability.
So let me ask the question with respect to CUSMA being renegotiated, right? It's going to have to be renegotiated anyway next year. Is the idea that we would open this sooner or just agree to do what with respect to it?
Well, first of all, we should only do it if it's clear for us that we have some interest to defend. If the relationship is governed by tariffs, then there's no point in us doing it because it just doesn't make sense anymore. If not, then yes. And should we go sooner than later? Yes, but only if we have clearly defined what it is that we want out of those negotiations. And I was among those who, at the very, very outset, thought we should renegotiate early. But, I have people and friends who have been involved in these things that reminded me that until Canada sets out its positions in a negotiation, we should not be going to the table. Otherwise, we'll just end up listening to the other side and animating the meeting, and that's not the place we want to be.
So you're part of the team here negotiating this back and forth. When you hear Donald Trump go off about supply management here and the 240% that they pay for a carton of milk, what's going through your mind? Like, where is he getting these numbers from? What's the point of that as far as you're concerned?
Well, I'm on the advisory committee, so that's not the team negotiating, and we're not negotiating per se, but I'm on the advisory committee. Now, when he raises milk or supply management, but milk in particular, it's part of a protected area for Canada. What goes through our head is that he negotiated with us an agreement in 2018 in which he accepted that this part would be carved out, and 99% of all the merchandise trade between both countries goes back and forth without any tariffs at all. Now, the other part of it, Aaron, is that they also have areas that they have protected. For example, sugar. They have a 300% tariff wall on sugar. And to just give you context on all of this, every single country in the world, for historical, economic reasons, cultural reasons, will have sectors that they choose to protect. The Japanese protect rice. Well, that's not unusual. But Mr. Trump accepted this in 2018, and we don't intend to change that when we sit down with them, if that day comes, to renegotiate CUSMA. We're going to continue to protect that, protect culture, protect our right to legislate on language. That doesn't mean we agree with every language bill in the country, by the way, but it means that here are areas in which Canada has clearly set out red lines on which we will not put these issues on the table.
You know, there are some people suggesting, I was watching the Australian Prime Minister, because they've been hit with a 10%, that baseline tariff, even though they apparently don't charge any tariffs whatsoever, or I think their typical tariff would be 2.5%. They don't understand why this is happening, but they have chosen not to have counter tariffs. They've chosen to, I know we can call it negotiate or diplomatically try to get rid of this or somehow make it, reduce it in some fashion. Yet we have come out, and this happened, by the way, still when Justin Trudeau was Prime Minister, right? The day after that famous press conference that he held where he said, if you do this to us, we're going to do this to you. Do you think this is the best approach at this point to keep counter tariffs for everything we get tariffed that we tariff back to them?
I do agree that we should retaliate, and we have chosen a different path from what the Australians are doing. And by the way, in the case of the Australians, I mean they're being hit, as you mentioned, out of the blue, not expecting this at all. I mean, they hit South Korea, Japan, and with pretty high tariffs. Europe with 20%, and Mexico has had also a bit of a different approach. Fine. But I, in the case of Canada, though, we have such proximity with the United States. I think we have to be very clear in our position. Prime Minister Carney announced a very surgical tariff on autos that are not built under the umbrella of the agreement that's called CUSMA, which is fine. But the Chinese announced that they're retaliating not only with $34 billion worth of tariffs on the Americans, but also cutting off access to 7 strategic minerals and also putting on what they call an entity list, a number of American companies. An entity list is more or less saying you're not allowed to do business in China. So the Chinese are retaliating with a lot of force, and so each country decides how they want to do it. To come, I think we should watch carefully. I'm expecting that Europe will retaliate next week and that they'll come out with a package. And the talk now, Aaron, in Washington is April 9th, because these tariffs are supposed to come into force on April 9th. And now, because of the reaction of the markets, a lot of people in Washington are asking themselves whether or not Trump is going to try to find himself an off-ramp before they come into force, as he has to acknowledge, as we all do, that the markets are reacting very negatively to all of this.
By the way, I would ask the question now, when he was standing there in front of that board and going through the list of countries and what their tariffs would be, et cetera, we've now found out, even through the White House's own release, did you see the mathematical formula that they used?
Yeah.
It's not even about tariffs at the end of the day.
It's not about tariffs. It's literally just hooked up out of thin air as an arbitrary formula to say we're going to put tariffs. So that's why we end up with all these bizarre numbers that have nothing to do with trade at the end of the day. And just to add a part to that, I mean, it has always been understood that we do not tariff developing countries who need to be able to trade to pull themselves out of poverty as opposed to obtaining aid. The treatment of developing countries, Aaron, has always been different, and rightfully so, as we want to help them be able to build their economy. But they've done that to everyone. They even tariffed certain territories that are part of France or Europe that are not independent countries, and obviously whoever was doing this did not know that when they drew up the list. So I think they're hitting Martinique and Saint-Martin. And, all of a sudden you realize, well, they're part of the European Union technically. And hitting them. So it is a bizarre situation.
I would ask you as well, I don't know if it's a fair question to ask, what do you think the end game here is as far as Donald Trump is concerned? I mean, this idea of we want everybody to go back to manufacturing in this country, we want to take us back, 70 years ago when we were a powerhouse. Is that doable?
No. Well, he wants to bring back manufacturing. The logic goes this way. You sell in the United States, you manufacture in the United States, and if you don't, I will tariff you. But if you do manufacture here, you're going to have access to low energy prices plus a great fiscal and tax system. And so, but the problem with that, Aaron, let's take cars or a bicycle. There is no single product that is made in a single country in the world. That world disappeared 50 years ago. It doesn't exist anymore. And so you end up in a world where, parts and components come from literally everywhere. So that's what makes it, impossible to attain. But he is saying this is what I want to do. The other part is this is a superpower behaving like a superpower, and this is it looks like a power grab. In the end, I want to be the biggest player on the block, and they already are. So, Canadians, we're used to dealing with our American neighbor. And by the way, we distinguish between the American people and the government. We like Americans. We get along well with Americans. They're friends and they're allies. And we don't want to lose that. But if this is the way their government is going to behave, we're going to have to respond.
Did I hear you say earlier today or yesterday, I know I heard Melanie Joly say this as well, our relationship with the U.S. will never be the same again.
And Prime Minister Carney has said that, and yes, I mean that's the simple reality. We're not, we always hope that we will one day return to some normal. We will not return to that. There's no normal to return to. It's changed forever, and in that respect, we'll just have to get used to it. And now there's three things we're going to have to do: is look at how we operate our economy, and we're going to have to change it. The second thing, how we operate our country, our federal system, to be more efficient, and the third thing, Aaron, is our position in the world. Those are the three areas in which we're going to have to rethink Canada, so to speak.
Mr. Charest, always appreciate your time. I would ask you one more question about Mark Carney, but we're out of time, so if we can maybe chat next week. I have some questions.
Well, that's a good coincidence because I have answers.
Excellent. Then we'll talk next week. Thank you so much for your time. Always appreciate it. But former Quebec Premier Jean Charest, his take on tariffs. And I want to know about Mark Carney. We talked about that earlier today, so maybe we can take him up on that offer and chat next week.